Welcome to episode 5 of our Flourishing podcast. You have Megan here and Pastor Kaira Redding.
And Pastor Megan.
And Pastor Megan, yes.
I know it can be really weird to introduce yourself that way, right? I know, I do the same. I'm like,
for sure. But we are here with episode 5, and we want to know how you have been enjoying this podcast. So let us know, even by emailing flourishing@highlight.church and letting Pastor
they can
Kaira
like and
know.
Subscribe. That's the thing, right? People say that. Yeah. Like and subscribe
on
to Highlight
YouTube,
Church.
Flourishing podcast.
Follow me on Instagram.
Exactly. But we want to know. So even DM Pastor Kaira to let her know how you have been enjoying the journey.
I do.
We do want to
read them.
She reads them. She responds.
Yes.
And we do
sometimes you get a voice memo. You'd be like, what? You know, I do. I love it. So
exactly. Yeah. People have been enjoying your voice memos.
Yeah.
So keep doing them. But let us know how you have been enjoying it. And we want to be able to hear from you.
Absolutely.
But we have been having such an amazing time within this mind portion. We're on our second part. And we also want to celebrate you for how you've arrived to part 2.
Absolutely.
Minds. I know that this is one of my favorite ones, but we're talking about renewing the minds. And I actually want to read a verse from this week. And it's just going to be one verse, but it's Romans 12, and it's going to be verse 2. So it says, don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. So Pastor Kaira, I want to hear from you. Obviously, that's what we're here for, but we want to hear from you when it comes to what sparked this renewing your mind, what sparked habits and all that. So what sparked it?
It was, I think 2019, because it was before the pandemic. I do know that 2020 did like spark this mental health awareness, right? Soul care, like we see it all over the place. And so for me in 2019, that's when I really started to dive into. So it was even before the pandemic. Yeah. And then the pandemic came and I got off of social media completely because I felt like there were so many voices talking about what God was doing in me. And I didn't need to hear from anyone else, only the Lord, right?
That's good.
And any message that came out of Highlight Church. I think that's so important that we focus in on the voices that God places in your life. And social media can be very hard because you just get flooded with info. It's not good. So I just wanted to say that. But it started there. And I just knew that I was doing certain things that was not honoring God. Mm-hmm. So at night, right, we want to unwind, right? So it's 8 o'clock. It's like kind of in the wintertime and you're putting the kids to bed, right? And now it's mommy time, right? And so I started to notice that I started to touch wine. Mm-hmm. And I am not a wine drinker. Even before I gave my life to Christ, like, it was Patron, okay? I was like Patron popping bottles. Megan, I don't think they know. You know.
No, yeah, we know.
Yeah,
I know. Sorry,
Megan and I go back, okay? It's crazy that we're pastors, but we go back. Yeah. Megan's like my baby cousin by marriage. It's really hard to explain it. So
that's a side story.
A side story. We won't go there, but she's seen me popping bottles in the VIP, okay?
Yep. And she snuck me into the VIP.
Yes, I did. I think you were like 19. Oh my Jesus, Lord. But anyways, thank God for the Lord.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so I just recognized like, I'm entertaining wine. That's not really the norm for me, what's going on, right? Yeah. And then it was eating late. That kind of became a really big norm. But I think it's when I started to sneak in wine. And I had another pastor friend who was sharing her story about all of this. And I love her dearly. And I'm grateful for her story because it gave me an awareness like, wait, I could fall down that path. And she's sharing her testimony so that I don't have to go through that. So hold up, something has to change. Yeah. I was 195 pounds. Although my life was great exteriorly, like I was on the inside drowning. Mm-hmm. That's what I felt like. I felt like I was drowning. And so I just woke up one morning in pain. They were testing for like all of these inflammation, anti-inflammatory, could it be MS? Could it be lupus? And I just started to read the word and got to Romans 12. And that's when I was like, I need the Lord to renew my mind again.
Yeah.
I don't think renewing your mind is just a one-time event when you give your life to Jesus, right? And your old self dies and your new self is raised. Like renewing the mind when it comes to the Lord isn't for the rest of your life until he calls you home.
Yeah.
So with renewing of the mind, that's where habits came to play.
Yeah.
And I unpacked habits like never before. Like scientifically, I wanted to know, what is a habit? What makes up a habit? I read The Power of Habit was like a game changer for me. And I recognized that there were just certain habits that I was doing that were not honoring God. And so one of them was my nighttime routine.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was unpacking the habits that led to the renewing of my mind, because it was in those places that God was forming the correct habits that I needed in order to thrive, right? So yeah, habits was one of those things that when I came across and I recognized like, oh my gosh, my brain is taking over and I'm not even realizing it, right? And also when you develop good habits, it's having self-control. That's a fruit of the Spirit.
Yes.
So why am I not operating in a fruit of the Spirit? I need him to help me in the self-control.
Yeah.
So I got to get my habits down.
That's good.
So honestly, it did start with kind of like I was heading down not the greatest path, and it could have led to disaster, like my friend, she talks about it. She had to go into rehab and therapy and AA and all of these things, being a minister.
Yeah.
And I love her testimony because it really speaks to so many pastors. Like, we're all human.
Yes.
And I think people can put us on these pedestals and expect everything from us, and then throw on being a wife, throw on being a mom, and the plate can get very, very heavy. And so it's very easy for us to grab on to not so good habits. So it can look like porn, as innocent supposedly porn can be, and all of a sudden you're having an affair.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Again, the habit can be eating late at night. Like I was having wings late at night, and then all of a sudden you're in the obese category and you're in pain, and then you wake up and you're 50 and it's really hard to get out of bed or keep up with your grandkids.
Yes.
So I just knew I have to get on top of my habits, and it starts now. It starts today. So this week we're going to be unpacking habits because it's important to know what is a habit.
Yeah,
How about for you, when you discovered, I know we talked a lot about it when I was going through it, but your habits, what was a habit that you had that you're like, oh no, I can't do this?
Well, the beautiful thing, and you mentioned your friend, but the beautiful thing is that when you shine light on your story, it illuminates that for people to realize just the bad things that they're doing within their own life.
Yeah.
So not to piggyback on the nighttime routine, but it reflected a lot within my own life that I do have a sucky nighttime routine, and I am eating poorly, and I am going to bed late, and I'm waking up feeling horrible, or I'm not waking up on time, and my morning is rushed, and my planner is not filled, and it's just a whole list of things. And so you talk a lot about, and that's just one example for me, but you talk a lot within the book, even about a habit loop. And the importance of recognizing your cue. And Pastor Kaira even talks about holy habits. So there's a message that she did within the book. So I encourage you to definitely go look up that message. But I remember you jiggling your keys. Okay, I'm thinking about my keys and I hear it, and you go through the whole habit loop. So walk us through some cues, that you identified, but it's not necessarily the cue that's the issue. It's the routine.
There you go.
Following suit. So what are some cues that you identified? Okay, I see this, but I don't like the routine that I'm doing afterwards.
Right. So when it comes to renewing our minds, it's allowing our brains to kind of reshape or redo things. And scientists are finding out that it can be done. Before it was, if you have the trauma or if this thing happened, your brain's kind of stuck. That's just what it is. But now they're finding out that Romans 12:2 is real. Right? That the Lord can truly renew our minds. He can make new neural pathways. And what they're discovering is these neural pathways or the messages that kind of go through your brain, they can be rerouted. And the way that you do that is through habits and building good habits, because a cue will always and forever be a cue. You can never get rid of cues. You need the cues, but what happens is you don't activate in a healthy routine, and you're always going to receive a reward. Always. And so it's really the routine that needs changing. But a cue, it can look like when you put the kids to bed. That's a cue.
Yep.
They're in bed. Oh, now I can unwind and do what I want, and you enter into your routine, right? A cue can look like when you're throwing on your running shoes. For a lot of runners, the minute they put on their running shoes, their brain activate in the habit of running and what they're about to experience. And so now they've got to build a routine through that, whether it's that marathon training, whether it's the 5K, they need to build a routine so that they can get through it, because the reward at the end is, man, I finished something that I thought I could not do. And that's a great reward, man. It tells your brain, like, I need more of this, right? And so that's why some runners become like junkies, right? They like sign up for all these marathons. But the cue's just never going to go away. So even when you grab your keys, when you hear those keys, that is a cue. It tells your brain you're about to go drive. And the brain is the smartest computer system, right? And a computer system, pretty much the moment that you turn it on, it knows what it needs to do to get your drive started, to get your internet up. It has these pathways, as you will, that just automatically activate. Because if not, the computer gets really hot and you get an overdrive and it eventually die out, right? If it's not working or processing correctly. Our brain is the smartest computer system. So what it does is it turns everything we do every day into habits, because it's how you conserve energy, right? So that the brain can process through other things like creative writing or learning new things, right? Because if it has to constantly go through the process of knowing how to back your car out, that's exhausting, because there's so many different elements to backing that car out. So it'll turn everything into a habit so that you don't have to think about it. So it's important to notice those cues throughout the day and the routines that you're doing, because in that way you're able to unpack, oh man, this isn't a good routine, right? So for instance, if the cue is when you dangle the keys and you get into your car and your brain has automatically put that into a process, maybe it's switching up the routine and not automatically turning on that music on blast, but sitting in silence through the car ride for the next 5 minutes. I wonder what God could do and speak through those silent 5 minutes.
That's good.
Right? Because again, we've built the habit of turning the car on, putting the music on, putting the GPS, let's go. So your brain automatically just does it to save energy. And so it's really recognizing these cues throughout the day that I can say, hold on, what does that routine look like? And so this week with the mentors and mentees, they're going to be unpacking that, right? We're going to be able to say, okay, I have a cue that at noon, my stomach starts to growl, right? That's a cue, like you're starting to get hungry. Well, what's the routine? Do you automatically go and grab the junk food in the meal room or whatever? Or have you processed through packing a healthy lunch? Have you put grapes and maybe water at your table that you can intake so you make the right decisions at noon? Because ultimately that cue will always be there. You're going to be hungry at 12 o'clock. And the reward is, right, the fact that you ate well, maybe now you're dropping weight, whatever, you're feeling good. You don't hit like that 2 p.m. fog. And because of that, then your brain starts to say, ooh, I like this routine. Let's switch and let's throw out that old routine and put this new one. That's renewing your mind.
That's good.
That's allowing God to change those connections and doing what really should happen so you can have those godly rewards at the end.
That's good. That's good. I brought you through just walking us through all of it. So that's good. I know we all need it. But speaking about the Lord, because we want to invite Christ into every single thing that we do. So how do you invite the Holy Spirit in? You know your cues, right? You walk us through. We have a chart in the book and everything. So we're going to write our cues down. But for the routine portion, how can we invite the Holy Spirit into this? So that we're changing our routines and we're producing the rewards that we want to see.
That's really good. That's a great question. So we do give like the breakdown in the book this week. So that's really good. Because honestly, I read so many books and like did all this research, and I'm like, can you just give it to me in 2 minutes? You know, like I just want to know the answer, but I've got to go through all of this. So I have simplified it so that you're literally getting it this week. But it really takes a recognition of the cues. Honestly, it takes you understanding what those cues are and then asking yourself, okay, what is the routine that automatically activates when this cue is triggered? Mm-hmm. And then once you write it out, because it takes you journaling this stuff, you have to stop and actually be mindful about this. Yeah. You can't just go about your day and like, oh, I'll change up this routine and I'll do this. You've got to put a plan in place.
That's good.
And so once you have that written down, that's when you pray, right? And this is what I did. I prayed and I sought the Holy Spirit and said, okay, this is a routine. I need you to compose, to author, to scribe, whatever, breathe a new routine.
That's good.
Right? Breathe something that you'd be proud of. Breathe a routine that you would look back and say,
well done.
Well done. Mm-hmm. Good and faithful servant. Well done. And that's just what I did. And he truly, like I would end that prayer and I would come out and just like the idea started to flow, you know? And that's the thing. We can think like God has to be like this huge audible voice, right? But it's oftentimes impressions like within us, and that's him working. That's good. You know? And when you line it up biblically, you know he's speaking. And so, so like one of mine was, okay, my cue is I get home around 4:00, right? And because I would have picked up my son at 3, my other son would have gotten out of school about the same time. So we all get home at 4. And the cue is we all get home, I drop my bags, I take my shoes off. Mommy is exhausted.
Yeah.
Right? But I still got to press through the day and I'm making them food and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And the Lord was like, I need you to stop and think about what you can do at 4:00 because you are exhausted, but you still have a little bit of energy.
That's good.
So what can you do? And immediately I just felt like I should work out. Like I shouldn't wait until 8:00. I shouldn't do it in the morning because I'm not a morning wake.
That's
like
real.
Pastor calls them wake out. I can't do it. Like morning workouts, I don't think so. And so 4:00. And so that's when he made me realize the family can wait an hour. Let them unwind too. Why are you pressing through the 4:00 time? Why are you bulldozing in and homework needs to get done and food needs to be on the table? Let the hour breathe and focus on you. And when I recognized that, I put a plan in place and that's when the routine started, right? So I was okay, well, the minute I take off my shoes and I drop my bags, that's my cue. I'm putting on my workout clothes. So the night before I would put my workout clothes right next to my Peloton and I would also like look up what I wanted to do. And I'd put my workout clothes, I grab my water and I would sit on that bike, whether I felt like it or not. And the minute I started, within 2 minutes, my brain was like, here you go. Yeah. Here's the reward. This feels good because you do have the energy. Because if you're able to bulldoze and do all the other things, focus on self first, and I'll give you the energy to do the rest. Good. And that's what I just really felt the Holy Spirit do. And that's exactly what happened. Yeah. So that's a whole new routine was, started. And the reward was I lost weight. I felt good. And at 5:00, I was still cooking dinner. My family was still fed. The kids were still getting their homework done. Right?
That's good.
And it's just amazing what the Lord does also with your timeline, I think, throughout your day when you're really honing into those cues.
Yeah, that's good. And that's not the norm. Like the norm is press through. The norm is you get home and everything has to be done in the right and this time stamp and all that. But you just see how the Lord just speaks differently to each person. Mm-hmm. And so I love that. I love what he has done specifically within your life here. But you talk about reward.
Yes.
You talk about you felt good.
Yes.
So dopamine.
Yeah.
Let's talk about dopamine, right? That feel good hormone.
Yeah. But we invited him to the party.
We invited him to the party. That's exactly what you said within the content. But
I can't take that. You know who says that all the time?
Who says that?
Guess. Think about
Is it on Peloton?
Yes.
Okay.
She's got it. You got it. It's Robin.
Okay, Robin. Yeah. Okay, I didn't want to get wrong.
Robin always says like, hey, bring this to your party or bring this to the party.
Funny.
So
Robin's awesome.
I love her. Yeah.
She's always pumping me up.
Yeah, for real.
But dopamine pumps us up, right?
Yes,
so what are some things that can promote that dopamine within you, right? So you mentioned sex in the book, right? How dopamine promotes that.
Right.
But you also talk about
sex and marriage.
Sex and marriage, yes. You also talk about Bible reading.
Yes.
So
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Talk about dopamine.
Yeah. So dopamine is it's the feel-good hormone. I mean, there's different feel-good hormones, like serotonin's another.
Yeah.
But dopamine's it is the quick burst of euphoria. I guess it's the best way to be able to explain it. Very quick. And so that's why, to be addicted to drugs can be pretty easy to become addicted because of the high and the instant euphoria you feel. It's like you're smacking your brain with thousands of, pounds of dopamine at one time. So that's why drugs are bad.
Yeah.
Don't do drugs. But what scientists have found is Bible reading does release dopamine in the brain. And so starting the morning out, reading your word can give you the feel good that you need throughout the day. Because what happens is when you start hitting walls or you have stressors, you're reminded of that dopamine reward that filled that brain part, the reward center of your brain. And so you're encouraged and you get through your day.
Yeah.
So reading your Bible is a must. And there's this crazy stat out there that only 6% of Christians actually read their Bible. That's
very crazy. Yeah.
Crazy. 6%. Devastating. And so I do believe that's why there's so many of us who are in defeat. And then the world looks at us that don't believe in him and I don't know if I want to follow Jesus because you're kind of grumpy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the Bible will give us the dose of dopamine that we need to get through the day. And that's why through the journey, we're reading a lot of different passages. We're all over the scriptures.
Yes.
I know we started in Genesis, but now we're going to really be going everywhere. And then, honestly, when I was working out, and it was hard because I was 196 pounds, I was carrying so much extra weight, and it was hard to work out. And I call it movement because I feel like workout is exhausting. So after I moved my body for 30 minutes, I would give myself dark chocolate because dark chocolate, 70% or better.
70, yeah.
Yeah, it does give you a boost of dopamine. Yeah. And I just remember I'd finish my workout and I'd have that bite, and it was so euphoric. Honestly. And what happens again in the brain is, oh, what you just did, girl.
Yes.
We really like that. So tomorrow at 4:00, you're about to work out again. Right. And even my workout routine, it kind of started at 6 and then I moved it up to 4, so I know I talk about routines in the book, but it's so important to reward ourselves to give us that boost of dopamine so that we can continue to do the habit that God has deemed holy.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's so good. Yeah. And just to put a little kind of reminder on top of what you just stated about how we're jumping all over within the mind portion in the word. And you mentioned it at the top of the podcast, this episode, that it's very important to be mindful of where you're dipping yourself, where what you're watching and what you're allowing your soul to digest. And everything that we need is already here within this.
Yes.
And as we close out, there's a supplement that we want to talk about.
Yeah.
Magnesium.
Okay, see, I almost forgot.
You almost forgot about we can't forget about magnesium.
I think I was telling your husband before we started the podcast, right? Because he's like, "Oh, I have a headache." I'm like, "You want some magnesium?" I think magnesium's my answer for everything.
It is. It helps with cramps.
Oh,
it helps with
helps with cramps.
Sleep. It helps with headaches.
Yes.
What else?
It does.
A lot of stuff.
So many things. I mean, and our bodies do lack it. You can get magnesium through your foods, but I am just way too busy to figure out how much magnesium did I get in my foods today. I know there's some women who can do that. Go, girl. And let me know.
I'm definitely not one of them.
Yeah, not me either. So I take magnesium every evening when the sun's going down. I try to take it. But sometimes I do take it through the day. It does help relax your muscles, helps you sleep at night. And I know there's different forms of magnesium. And
Yes.
so on my Instagram,
Amazon
we do
cart.
have, we do have like our Amazon cart, link in the bio kind of thing. And where I mention, hey, this is a magnesium that I recommend. Dr. Amen actually has a great magnesium that I like. It's like in tablet form, and it's 100 and I think 20 milligrams. You could take up to 4 a day. So I like those because they're very sour.
taste
but
good too.
They do taste good, and they have the right form of magnesium. So I bite those a little bit. Maybe we can put it in the podcast. I don't know. Maybe we can directly link it in the podcast so that you can just hit the link and go straight to that. But it's honestly a wonder supplement, and every woman definitely needs to be on magnesium, and it's a difference maker. I think the reason why I shared magnesium, this part, is because there are certain habits that need like excellent sleep, right? So that you can operate well the next day. Yep. And magnesium helps to do that.
That's so good.
And then there's other things we're going to be letting the girls know to do this week. So it's exciting. Good. Yeah. I don't know which part of the journey is my favorite, you know, whether it's soul, whether it's mind, whether it's body, no idea, but
it's all needed. So
exactly.
Thank you so much, Pastor Kaira, for just continuing to deposit greatness within us. And we can't wait to see you next time for our Flourishing podcast.